Welcome, ladies, non-binaries, and gentlemen, to my entry to Classy Wales DMV video contest. That's District, Maryland, and Virginia. But where I'm from, we call it the RMV, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Since WMATA is so far away, we have WMATA at home, Porter Square, named for the Hotel of Zachariah B. Porter and its iconic signature dish, the Porterhouse Steak. Architecturally, this station looks just like the DC Metro, especially Roslyn and Pentagon with the split platform layout. It's poetic justice that Boston is clearly copying DC when they made this subway station, but upstairs is something you can't stand to copy from Boston, better commuter rail. You're expecting just an MBTA station review here? Bait and switch. Context for Bostonians. In DC, the Maryland MARC and the Virginia VRE operate with a mindset of the previous century, though to be fair, that's forced by CSX. They serve one target demographic only, running towards DC in the morning, away from DC in the evening, and that's pretty much it, except for the Penn Line, which is objectively the best one. Context for Washingtonians. In Boston, the Big Purple MBTA trains run diesel underwire all over eastern Massachusetts and into Rhode Island. They run not just to and from the city in rush hour, but every 2 hours in both directions, 20 hours a day, even on weekends. With Boston as our example of best practices to emulate, I am proud to present my proposal, the Washington Commuter Rail. Yes, there are better railroads to copy than the T. There are existing proposals, official ones even, for a regional rail network much better than the one I made, with modern innovations like through running and electric multiple units for rapid service levels, but that's not what my proposal is about. Like how my inland corridor was to east-west rail, the Washington Commuter Rail is the opposite of a mega-project, to be implemented with existing rolling stock as quickly and cheaply as possible before the nicer infrastructure of rolling stock procurement is finished. That's why the motto of the Washington Commuter Rail is, not because it is good, but because it is easy. Through running doesn't fit Union's track layout, the two sides use incompatible rolling stock, it would make my timetables more complicated, and I'm not even properly merging MARC and VRE into one interstate agency. The WCR branding is just a trench coat for them. Practicality is my goal because small dreams are attainable, for my target audience is not the transit enjoyers on the internet, but the actual higher-ups of these agencies, and I want to send them my pitch with a straight face. If I send the MARC or VRE board an extravagant crayon for a world-class express Japan bond, then they would probably say it won't happen for at least 10 years, and then probably nothing would change for at least 20. The idea, therefore, is to propose something like that first, and then when CSX says no, hit him with my worst proposal, like the old saying, shoot for the stars, and if you miss, you might land on the moon. Here is the existing Amtrak timetables, which I made by checking a Union Station departure board. I'm not adjusting them at all, except I extended one of the Springfield regionals to Boston as a callback to the inland corridor. On my timetables, north is always to the right. I don't know why other railroads keep getting this wrong and holding their northbound timetables upside down. Anyways, with this in mind, here's my comprehensive near-term vision for DMV regional transit. Map shot, map shot. Right now you're looking at the map shot. I got a lot of compliments for the black and white graphic design of the inland corridor, so I've continued it for the WCR, but really it's because of technical limitations. I only have a black and white printer at my house. This is the green Fredericksburg line to Spotsylvania, assigned 8 train sets. Most Virginia stations have only one platform, and I don't feel like adding more, but don't worry, there are such things as wooden crossings to board trains on the other track. They famously have them at Martin State Airport. These planks on the tracks can easily be installed by some local men in a single afternoon, and NORAC Rule 121 would be invoked if any other trains were to meet one boarding with these crossings. Or we could just build another platform out of wood anyways, it doesn't need to be a very big one. This is the blue Manassas line to Broad Run, assigned 5 train sets. I'd like to take a moment to explain my train numbering scheme. The 200s are the Manassas line, the 300s the Fredericksburg line, 4, 5, 600s different parts of the Penn line, 700s the Camden line, 800s the Brunswick line, 900s the Annapolis line, and 1000s the weekend schedule. Usually time transfers will share the last digit. One of my important design considerations for the Washington Commuter Rail is that the last outbound train of the night should leave late enough for people to take it home from a concert. Here's also the combined Virginia service as far as Alexandria, a very popular destination for workers. The yellow Brunswick line is assigned 9 train sets. I made a little typo here. And it goes to Frederick, Maryland and Martinsburg, West Virginia, so I kept accidentally calling it the Fredericksburg line while rehearsing my script. It has Amtrak service. The Floridian goes to Rockville, Harper's Ferry, and Martinsburg, and the Downeaster goes to Brunswick. To serve both branches after CSX says no to more frequent combined service on the trunk line, I'm taking inspiration from South Coast Rail by installing a second platform at Point of Rocks to transfer to a shuttle train. Every 2 hours, a train goes from Washington to Martinsburg, then becomes the shuttle to Frederick, and goes back to Washington, and this journey takes 6 hours. So the weekend schedule runs with 3 train sets. If you're going from Washington to Frederick, you transfer at Point of Rocks to the shuttle. If you're going from Martinsburg to Washington, it'll be an extra deviation via Frederick. A flawed train every 2 hours might not be as good as a direct train every 2 hours, but it's sure better than the status quo, 3 trains a day or none at all. We're about at the halfway point, so let me tell you about some cut content. It wasn't cut for the length of the video, but the length of the contest deadline. I was going to draw some cute mascots named Mark and Vera. Canonically, Mark is a doctor, or MD, and Vera is a voice actor, or VA. They are married, and that represents how their namesake railroads became the WCR. I'll retroactively put them in the video thumbnail later. The orange Camden line to Baltimore is assigned 5 train sets, and it's the only line that doesn't share tracks with other passenger trains. Due to its short length, it runs a 90-minute schedule with 2 train sets. Apparently nobody cares about Laurel Racetrack and Jessup, so neither do I. Now might be a time to mention that I still haven't quite learned how freight trains work, because the only way to figure out where they go is trial and error. However, for this project I've improved my methodology somewhat. With the inland corridor, I completely ignored freight trains from my calculations and left no room for them on a single-track line. With the Washington Commuter Rail, I simply say there's no way there are really so many freight trains that 2 or even 3 tracks can't fit a few more passenger trains every couple hours. The red Penn line to Baltimore and beyond was assigned 9-ish train sets, but somehow I've managed to make it run with only 8. Disclaimer, this was the most difficult line to schedule, because it turns out track assignments are exponentially more complicated when trains are able to express past each other, and some of these are definitely cutting it a bit close. Mark currently ends at Perryville, but the only reason anybody ever goes there is if they're deliberately avoiding Amtrak. So, the official proposal to bridge this gap is an extension to meet SEPTA in Newark. I was initially reluctant to extend the Penn line because it's already so long, but unfortunately SEPTA's through running would require me to remake all of Philly's schedules if I extended a line to Perryville, which is firmly outside the scope of a 12-minute video about the DMV, especially against the contest deadline. Wilmington is the most important place in Delaware, but Joe Biden Station is only 3 tracks, so to keep 2 of the 3 through tracks free, the transfer sometimes has to be inconvenient. Newark, on the other hand, is 4 tracks, so some WCR trains can meet SEPTA there where applicable with no problem. The Elkton infill station is the only new infrastructure required, reopening the abandoned historic depot with wooden mini-high platforms. Like how the Amherst Flyer was copied from an old Vermonter timetable, Elkton's schedules come from the Chesapeake, the last Amtrak train to stop there. Extending the Penn line trivializes the Northeast Corridor by local transit, at least in the northbound direction 6 times a year, if you have a lot of money. If you take the first WCR out on Friday, change for SEPTA, NJT, you can make it to New York just in time for a very expensive C-Streak boat to Martha's Vineyard, then New Bedford, MBTA to Boston, and you can even get as far as Newburyport. But speaking of boats, I'll turn back to the Camden line timetables for just a moment for my bonus proposal, the Annapolis line. Any rail line from DC would be a greenfield mega project taking years and billions, so in the meantime I'll suggest something a bit wetter, a ferry. Every river, harbor, estuary, lake and sea should have one, and a candidate who'd do this has my vote. The typical ferry is very high operational costs, but the Candela P12 is a Swedish electric hydrofoil with the passenger capacity of a minibus, and it was successfully implemented last year in Stockholm. The voyage from Baltimore at 25 knots is just over an hour, time competitive with an extended light rail and much faster than the current buses. The schedule is timed for a walking transfer to the Camden line, and based on how long it takes to top up the batteries, it needs a fleet of 3 boats. I shall name them the Annapolis, the Baltimore, and the Classy Whale, and if it's unexpectedly popular, 2 more boats continue the alphabet as the Decopunk and the Evan. If this is an integrated network, you have to be able to book through tickets at a price that makes sense. So I've copied Mark's zone increments and pasted them on VRE. The fare zones map looks like this as a defensive measure so the trains can evade detection by German U-boats. It starts at $5 and goes up by $1 for each zone, except for intrastate rides in Delaware. The cheapest trip you can take is a Delaware intrastate ride for $4 to match SEPTA, and the most expensive is $24 from Delaware to Martinsburg. Transfers between lines are at Union and Alexandria, and the outer Penn line to the Camden line assumes you take the Baltimore light rail. But some station pairs are invalid, such as Camden Station itself to the Penn line, Penn Station itself to the Camden line, specifically Heathrow to St. Denis, or Baltimore Harbor to any station other than Annapolis. However, on the weekend, $10 and unlimited pass like the T. Final remarks, ladies non-binaries and gentlemen. The WCR is not perfect, it is deliberately imperfect, but it will only cost a few million instead of billions. Its capital costs to implement consist of CSX trackage rights, 3 boats, and some basic construction materials, and if MDOT hired a real consultancy to study about it, they would probably spend more on the consultants, which is why I made it for free. I put a lot of effort into this project, but what I'm really trying to prove isn't the potential of MARC or VRE to be good rail services. I'm trying to prove my potential to be a good transportation planner. Shoot for the stars and you might land on the moon is a saying that describes the Washington Commuter Rail, because even if I don't get any internships, I still might win this contest. Please be sure to absolutely smash the like, subscribe, and bell buttons as if they were the crystal spheres of the heavens when I shoot for the stars or land on the moon. Here is my work cited. Thank you for watching. Yes! I nailed every line in one take. I am the world's most confident public speaker. Wow!